Welcome back. You're watching Storyboard. The jury session for the shortlisting of the nominees for the Kyoorius Creative Awards 2016 was held recently. The session for the Media, Advertising and Digital Awards lasted for a period of 4 days and saw a mix of prominent names from the industry. We caught up with the jury members and spoke to them about their experience of judging the awards and the quality of entries at Kyoorius Creative Awards 2016. Let's take a look.
This year we got a total of 1831 entries, which is about 31% higher than what we had last year. Given the fact that we also had media, so that's abrupt. We had more entries in advertising and digital for sure, but we also had media this year.
The experience has been really good in jury. I think there's been a really strong dynamic. There's been, as you would expect, some heated debate, but I think interestingly a lot of consensus as well. I think the good work was very evidently good, and we very quickly came to an agreement on that. And I think sadly some of the work that wasn't up to scratch was very obviously not up to scratch as well.
I think in terms of the presentation of the cases themselves, the three criteria which have been mentioned are very, very important, and a lot of case studies will have to be kind of rewritten, refocused around those three specific criteria which are pretty much there in the brochures.
It was slightly underwhelming, but probably also we continue to suffer from half the industry taking part and half the industry not taking part. So rather than it probably being, making the only truly united Indian award show is Cannes now. But the quantity of entries and the quality was slightly underwhelming compared to what I would have expected. But maybe it's a reflection of the year and what people have done.
When you go through a short list of a lot of things, the wrong time to actually ask, because you're sifting through a lot of rubbish which is going on. But I think overall, your averages are like any kind of award show, where 10% would be your basic average of work that's worth showing off to the world. I think it's the same thing here.
The thing about Kyoorius is, you're part of the jury for many different categories. So I think and that's a different orientation. So you're not just doing, print, and you're not just doing film. You're doing radio as well. So you need to scramble your brain, unscramble your brain a little bit, because I think to do justice to each category, you need to really deep dive into it. Especially something like film craft, for instance. There's from casting, editing, sound design is very different from just judging film overall. So yeah, a lot of that, and that's really deep diving and immersing oneself into really what the entry is all about.
As far as the jury session is concerned, which is happening now, I'm very happy because the jury are happy, they're judging it well. As far as whether it's doing well, I can answer that question on June 3rd when I see the audience and I see the reaction of the audience, because at the end of the day, the audience must feel happy about the awards. I was very happy that Balki agreed to be the jury foreman. It gives me immense pleasure. I mean, it's kind of getting somebody who really looks at the Indian scenario to be the foreman and guide the other jury members on the cultural context. The jury mix, as we always do, is Western, East Asian and Indian, and I think we have got a good mix there. And they vibe well, which is more important for me.
If I compare this to work that I've been seeing coming out of India over the course of the last 10 years or so, I think the work this year was good. I'd love to say it was great, but I don't think there was really enough great work out there. I think there were one or two campaigns which were more than good. But I think sometimes you go to awards and there's that one campaign that really sticks out and makes everyone say, wow. I'm not necessarily sure we found that this year, but yeah, there was some really good stuff there, and I'm always hopeful that there'll be great stuff just around the corner.
To look at such a lot of work coming out of India, but not looking at it with only Indians, makes a big difference. And so many times you go through that moment that, oh my God, we've sometimes become very close to following a grid. and that awareness is very important to take it back to everyday life.
A very interesting mix. Till now I've only attended Indian events and you get to see Indian friends. For the first time you're also getting a perspective from the international teams. Some of those inputs were actually used while judging some of those entries. So we got a very good blend of global, even regional, APAC level, and also India. It's a good learning also for many of us.
We're looking for a lot of elephants, but we're not finding as much. But the work that we're getting, some of it is really good. I think on the quality of entries, digital as a whole needs to put in a lot more effort, I think, in the kind of work that they do, and also the packaging. Sometimes we went looking for an idea and we realized it wasn't packaged well, and I think packaging is what lacks more than just the work. But yeah, even the work can get better.
In the jury process, what I really like is what I mentioned earlier. The perspective of international judges makes the discussions always more stimulating, because they're not completely argumentative debates. They are also combined with a process of understanding each other's point of view. So that I really like. I think that should continue to be maintained.
Every other award jury that I've been in, there has been so much of, people raising their hands and then trying to, there's that little thing of, oh, I know you and this is your work. And so I think this was really simple. Nobody knew whose work it was. There was no way of accessing that. I also felt it was pretty transparent. I know that whenever there was my work, I would abstain. I knew the other jury members would do that as well. I think the whole transparency thing really, that's what was really.
First, I feel they should have this, the craft category as separate from the creative, and they should have the radio as separate. I think they should split up the jury, otherwise it's just too much for a set of people to kind of do. And also, if you're calling the international jury, I think you must insist that a lot of things is subtitled, and you must actually reject things that are not subtitled, because then it kind of depends on a lot of explanation. They lose out the flavor of the stuff. Like radio, for example, none of it was subtitled, a lot of it was not, and they couldn't get it. So it just loses the punch of what you're trying to say. Otherwise, I think Kyoorius is doing a great job.
Better segregation between categories is really, really important. All of film perhaps could be under one, especially the craft part of it. Print and writing could be clubbed under one. This thing about making the same jury do everything, not that, we should be equally competent because we're representing our industry, but I just think it helps to have a more meaningful conversation in terms of the particular craft and that particular category.
The quality of work has not been as good as we had expected it to be. I don't know the reason, but some categories have been really poorly representative, of quality. And in film, for instance, there is some good work, but it's surprising that in press and poster we haven't got as many great entries as earlier years.
It is time for us to slip into a short break. When we return, we get to see how Abhay Deol, Ira Dubey and Prateek Babbar are nudging consumers to shop on Myntra.